Hello and welcome to the show. We are here at the Endurodrome with 3 more vehicles being driven till destruction, starting with an MX5. Yes, this poor little sports car is going to have a pretty tough day as it tries to survive for as long as possible around this highly destructive circuit. As much as I'd love an MX5 to do well, I have a sneaky suspicion this is not going to be a track that the car particularly enjoys. Small, lightweight vehicles have in general had trouble here, and a sports car, well, low suspension. It's not the stiffest of suspension, it's not full race car suspension, which is at least something for the Mazda, but yeah, what is likely to be stiffer suspension, less forgiving suspension, may well cause some grief, essentially, running around here. Speed bumps are unlikely to be the car's friend. We are across that lot okay. We lost some bumpers. That's kind of irrelevant. They're always likely to ping off on this sort of car. We bent the bonnet a little bit through some of that first stuff. That's all visual stuff. That doesn't really matter. It's when we start having issues, when we start bending wheels, that's when we have issues where we're going to be struggling to drive the car. And this circuit is good at killing wheel axles, good at killing suspension. Oopsie daisy, we've gone for a spin. Now, engine-wise, this mod comes with 2. You get the 1.6 or the 1.8. I have the 1.8, but you also get options for limited slip diffs as well. So I've got the 1.8 with the limited slip diff. It's about as good a chance as the car is probably going to have around here. We're going to get onto the banking. It actually worked quite well for the Mazda. It's nice enough through the mud pit, which is good to see. We should be fast enough. Aim that right. We will clear the rocks without too many issues. The radiator, potentially quite exposed in this car. Lower cars do tend to have issues with their radiator getting caught on the floor, but it's the wheels that are my real concern with this vehicle. I don't know how strong the wheel axles are going to be on this particular mod. We're going to bounce our way. I think we're already a little bit twisted. Possibly a little twisted on the steering front. Not the worst, but it's still only lap 1 for the car. Hell, if we get onto its second lap, it's probably doing pretty well for a little convertible sports car. It has got over big time down there. Now, we've seen this a little bit from cars in the past. Sort of sports cars. The Sunburst had a humongous crash down there when it's just bouncing around. That's a very rough piece of road. Ooh. Okay, one of the rear wheels is in a lot of trouble there. That's not a happy rear wheel anymore. It's unusual that it's the rear of the car that gets damaged first. Can happen, but normally, because where you're landing jumps on the front, on the nose, it's normally the front wheels that take the brunt of the damage. Yeah, steering is no longer perfect. We weren't expecting it to be. There goes the radiator. Can our rear wheel cling on for the remainder? Oh, that's a big crunch on the front. Everything is good. Yeah, we pull quite badly to the right. However, I'm amazed we got away with that crunch. That was the sort of, had that speed bump kill a number of cars. It's when the cars are flying through the air a little bit wonky and they go with sort of full weight of the car, nose first, into a speed bump. That's normally when we see trouble at that section. The MX5 got away with it. The MX5 did get away with that, which is good, and it is going to complete its first lap. So, it's not going to be worst. It's not going to be worst around this section. Not by a long shot, all things considered. So how far can we go now? The overheating, that's going to kill it. You know, at the end of the day, we are going to go out from an engine explosion. Well, yeah, it will die. However, it's how long it'll take. Whether it will be the overheating that is the thing that finally kills it, whether it be well, steering. I haven't got much control over the car anymore, so when we're going towards some of these jumps, when we're going towards some of these bumps, if we take off a little bit wonky, you can have a very big crash on the landing, and that can take out drive shafts, engines, and so on. I'm amazed the rear wheel is clinging on to life as well. I say it's clinging on to life as well. It's at a funky angle. I'm not quite sure what part of it we've broken. But yeah, something's unhappy in all of that. I love how we've got shopping in the boot. Love how we've got shopping in the boot of our MX5. It's the sturdiest of shopping that we've ever got. It hasn't moved as it's thrown around. I think actually the boot lid's come unconnected. The boot's just going to flap around. Again, not particularly important in the grand scheme of things. If we lose that, it's not going to affect our ability to keep going. How are our front wheels doing? Difficult to tell. Difficult to tell without spinning the camera around and then risking having a crash, clonk down over that jump. You know, the front of the car's been pretty sturdy. The front of the car has been pretty sturdy. Again, these lower cars we've seen, once the front starts getting damaged, sometimes they end up just smacking essentially the front subframe on the floor. That takes out engines and drive shafts pretty quickly when that starts happening. Can we get back onto the road at any point? We're going to bounce around here. You know, the cars are going to bounce around. They get thrown off this route from time to time. But we do kind of try and keep the car on the circuit as much as I possibly can. Oh, a little bit of sliding through there. Nothing major. We've still got enough control to gather it all and back up again. Temperature gradually creeping up, as you would expect. Here we go. For the big jump, we are nicely positioned. Yeah, it's got a good amount of speed through there. Oh, that's bad. Trees! Ouch! Is it going to come back down? No, it's going to need a slight little bit of a help in all of that. Oh, it was doing... We get the jump. The actual jump up there is okay. The landing, it just shakes the car about. I was expecting some big crunching across there. Didn't come. We didn't have the big crunches across the speed bumps, which is good. I think the front suspension has taken some damage in that roll. The front left kind of looks quite collapsed. Normally, once the front starts going, every time you hit a speed bump, it's going to get worse and worse, and you're going to eventually knacker the engine or something. This suspension seems to have gone, and the car is now happier with hitting the bumps, which is peculiar, but never mind. We're on to a third lap, which I wouldn't necessarily have expected from this car. Oh, we've snapped a front left. Front left has now snapped. We've lost steering quite badly, and the problem is it's snapped. It's not snapped. Oh no, it is actually got some movement. It just doesn't. Oh, crap. It has some movement, but it's very much trying to pull the car left. So we're going to have to be very careful now. That's not ideal. At least we have still got enough steering to turn the car, but it's going to be a slow progress, and this will not help the overheating. I mean, we won't admittedly be able to... Oh, well, there we go. In the end, didn't really matter. In the end, it did not really matter about the steering because we hit a speed bump, and there goes the drive shaft. That's it for the MX5. I did think we might see the steering being what killed it. Turns out, no. Turns out, no. Well, I say what killed it. Steering did a lot of damage because we weren't able to go particularly fast, and that hitting those big speed bumps with... Weirdly, hitting the big speed bumps with no speed, I think you run a greater risk of shattering the drive shaft, because if you hit them with some speed, you can often get... You sort of hit the first one and jump the second, which has saved a few cars in the past, but, yeah, that's the MX5. Very, very much out of it. It did incredibly well, though, far better than I expected. Up next, we have got a very, very mad-looking vehicle. This is the Lite track toy. Essentially... a full-size go-kart powered by a Lite engine, a massive wing at the back. I guess maybe the basic frame from the Lite suspension and so on from there. It's a crazy little vehicle, this. I love it. If we go from the... Here we go, interior view. I want to drive a car. I mean, I guess it's kind of like an aerial nomad in some ways, only this one, all-wheel drive, built for the... tarmac, shall we say. We'll turn off the... I have to turn off the ESC on all of these cars, as if they get damaged running across the sand and the dirt, it does confuse the ESC immensely and can sometimes stop cars from really ever using any power at all. So yeah, it always has to get turned off for a vehicle if it's spawned with it on. As I said, this is the all-wheel drive version. There are rear-wheel drive versions of this and so on. There are versions without the mighty wing, but of course, when given an option for a wing that mighty, we're going to be using it. We've already gone for a little bit of a spin. Suspension-wise, well... I mean, it's, at the end of the day, supercar suspension, so unlikely to enjoy all of this. Strength-wise, I have absolutely no idea. The radiator is at the back, so we might not actually see any overheating from this car, unless we have a very unfortunate kind of flight through the air, unfortunate landing, where we do land arse first. Although the chance if we hit the back of the car hard enough to break the radiator, there's a fairly good chance we've hit something else, and that's not going to be good for the car. As sort of small mini-game as well in this is how long do we reckon the rear wing is going to last. It's not going to last a rollover. Oh god, it's not going to last. It doesn't like going through there. The engine looks like it's going to shake itself apart. Or shake itself off the chassis. I don't think it can do that. If it can, that would be... Whoa! That would be fun and games. Oh no, we do have a big radiator at the front still. Never mind. I guess we can clonk. We could clonk that. I guess it's the intercooler. No, not turbocharged, actually. Maybe it's just a second radiator. Who knows, really, in all of that. Downforce does actually help cars with jumps around here, oddly enough. It kind of helps them fly a little bit more controlled. I have the we've seen this a little bit. Of course, Beam has been updated many times since I've played around with, since I've really launched, I guess, high downforce cars into the air. We used to, well, the various rally series, occasionally cars would go flying off the canyons and whatnot, and they were some big drops. And you could see the way the car is sort of moved around through the air with the wings and so on. And so it does make a difference. It does definitely make a difference, these wings. And I'm hoping to keep the rear wing on the back of this car for for as long as possible, because it would be helpful. Oh, it flew a little bit arse first over there, but that's fine. We've got the car down. It's shaking about slightly. Oh, don't go sideways across there. That has killed a few vehicles' wheels in the past. Do we have maybe front right? We've got a little bit of trouble going on with that. That doesn't look quite, it looks more cambered than, yeah, it is slightly more cambered. Now, that's not the worst thing imaginable. I had to grab the brakes there before we overshot massively into the chicane. Now, I am allowed to reverse. Normally, if the car can't make a corner without reversing, it is counted out, of course, but that was more just because I overshot on the way in. So that's perfectly allowed to reverse through that section. The steering, while maybe not quite 100% pristine, not exactly causing the car any grief. That's actually survived one lap. Oh, the wing! No, the mighty wing is gone. The wing lasted a lap. The wing has lasted longer than about 10 cars around this circuit. So that is something. Oh, I've just seen what's gone on with the front of the car. The double wishbone suspension on the front right doesn't have a bottom wishbone connected anymore. You can see the crack that's gone through, the split on the suspension. Now this is quite a cool thing to see when you're driving around. Essentially the shell, well not the shell, without the shell of the car, the basic frame of the car, that's a better way of putting it. You can see all of that little detail that you wouldn't normally see because the body's around. But it does also mean that, well, important bits do get more broken because sometimes the body takes the damage. Now if this goes for a rollover, I guess the roof or the top's okay, but everything else is going on the wheels and so on. Open wheel cars tend to go until they have a big crash, and when they have a big crash, when they land on a wheel, I'm really amazed that front wheel survived that. Bloody hell, I thought the front left was done for. It has snapped the bottom as well. So both the front wheels have got small issues. I'm surprised they're not flapping around more. I guess they're still being held in place by the top. You know, let's be honest, well, this game is incredibly detailed with the way it deals with damage and so on. I would imagine if you'd lost both the lower part of the double wishbones, it'd probably be having a slightly bigger effect on the car than it currently is. The top is just about holding it in place. The radiator is still good. Radiator is still good on the car. Engine's still fine. We've still got plenty of speed, plenty of traction. I mean, what is most likely to kill this? Judging by the damage we've seen so far, I would say potentially loss of steering. If we keep smacking up the front of the car, I would say potentially we're going to see a loss of steering. We've got a bit of oversteer down there. Ooh, we now fly, well, we fly a little bit wonky, but it's not as bad as I feared, having lost the wing. Oh, come on, come on, come on. There we go. Oh, and bounce. Where? we technically made it across there. We are starting pulling right ever so, again, it's that we're starting to take damage at the front. It's the gradual decline in car condition as it runs around the course. Have we done damage to the back wheel? Oh, it does fly very wonky now. Have we done damage? I'm trying to see. It does look like the rear right sits slightly lower. Possibly, not by much, but might be ever so slightly. This is a pretty good performance, actually, from this car, considering, I mean, it's not really designed for this. Oh, does the underside come away more at the front, or is that? Oh no, I think that's just the bumper. Never mind. It looked like the whole sort of front end was letting go at the lower part of the suspension, but I think that might have been a bumper rather than a actual integral part of the, you know, car construction. We are starting to spin it more as we take damage. Spins don't really do very much, unless you happen to spin into something. It's not too much of a problem. That's a big shock through the car. I guess the drive shafts, it is all-wheel drive. We can lose a drive shaft. I say, like, the drive shaft to the rear wheels is going to be mostly okay. The drive shaft to the front wheels, more perhaps susceptible to damage as it's shaking across these jumps. That all being said, though, if we lose the front drive shaft, doesn't actually matter one bit to the car. It will make it a little bit more difficult to drive, but isn't going to stop it from moving. God, that's shaking. It's scary to see. Oh, it's not handling fun anymore. Something's got. You can actually see the way it's now wobbling. Why is it doing that? That's very weird. So it's like going in a straight line and it's just wobbling from side to side almost. Amazingly, that's the first rollover from this car. As we will flip it back over, that is now starting to get concerning. I suspect it's something like there. Yeah. Okay. So we've got weirdness is going on with the Lite track toy. I mean, for now it's okay, and as far as the car's still drivable, it's just when is it going to do that, and is it going to do that at an inconvenient point? We are going to come back down onto our wheels. Okay, so now we've started the damage to the rear right. Pretty sizable damage, actually. Okay, that's got a lot of camber. I say a lot of camber, not compared to some of the cars that have run, but... Oh, there goes a tyre. Tyre's not the worst. It sounds bad when you hear that explosion, but a tyre letting go, we can deal with. Hell, we've had cars with all the tyres gone. Normally there's a fire, and that's when we see all the tyres gone. This is very peculiar now. It's... Like visually, it doesn't look as broken as some of the cars that have gone here, but there's obviously something really wrong with the geometry of the everything. Pretty much, considering what we put this car through, the geometry of the everything is probably an apt description. So we are handling strangely, we do just randomly pull around. Oh, we fly really weirdly through the air. I wonder if sort of bits of aero might have got... all bits of aero that are affecting the way the vehicle is driving have got peculiar on this from the damage. Because that's flying very funky. I'm not sure if our front left is actually touching the floor anymore with the damage at the back. It is, but it's... Yeah, okay, so the rear right is almost sort of entirely collapsed, which is making everything unbalanced. We're still going, though. The track toy lives on, although we very nearly didn't live through that concrete. Keep going, track toy. You're doing amazingly well. You are doing amazingly, amazingly well. It's kind of almost anchoring down on that rear corner. I wonder if that's... Oh, it's not done at that time. Whoa, and then round we go again. Yeah, so things are not looking great for this car, although having gone this far, I don't want to go over here. This is the first time I've ended up over that part of the circuit. Oh, well, we can't go through that apparently. Hey, almost. Oh, no. Hey, we do end up back the right way. Well done, Lite. Can we spin around now? There we go. Yeah, the suspension, steering, everything. Can't believe we haven't snapped the front wheel off at the rate we're going here. Although we are now having to go a little bit slower, and we saw what happened with the MX5 once we started to dip that little bit slower across some of these speed bumps. We're now just going back to spinning more and more. Again, spinning better than rolling. Well, in terms of survival, in the general grand scheme of things, rolling is of course the best thing to do with a car. But in terms of keeping your car alive around this circuit, spin is definitely a preferable option. That's pretty weird, just the way it anchors itself through a corner. It's fairly peculiar. I'm gonna have a big crash in this car. I'm saying it now. I'm gonna call it now. I think there's gonna be an almighty crash with this car at some point here, because if it lets go at the wrong moment, especially around the big jumps or coming up towards the rock pit, if it suddenly veers itself away, I'm doing the best I can to try and keep it all vaguely pointing the right direction, but if it does suddenly let go, we are still actually capable of pretty good speeds with the car. It's getting so lucky on all of these landings. These landings are working so well. Lite. Can't believe it's still okay here as we head up through the house once more. Oh, pinged off of the side of that. But again, no major damage. This and the S series, I think, have had some of the luckiest. I mean, the S series took a heap of damage and just didn't stop going, and then no one really knows how it managed that. This has had so many close calls that could have snapped off one of the wheels. I mean, they probably should have snapped off some of the wheels with the close calls it's had, the landings it's had. Now, what are we going to do up towards this jump? Are we going to lose control of it? Oh, yeah. There we go. This is problems now for the car. Oh, we've actually got big problems at the front right. Front right has completely come apart. There's no suspension. There's nothing holding the wheel on apart from the tie rod, I guess. That's surely not going to last for too long. Oh, no. Don't get it. I said don't get it stuck down there. The drive shaft and the tie rod are what are holding that front right wheel in. I mean, if we lose, I'd actually rather lose it because it's being driven currently, and that means it will pull the car around. Oh, balance the wobbly. Oh, brakes. Okay, so when we go on the brakes there, braking still works on that wheel, but it's going to pull the car in random directions. This is going to get very difficult very quickly, because if that wheel decides it wants to go some direction and I don't have time to catch it, we are going into the scenery. Oh, in many ways I would rather lose that wheel. Oh, in many ways I think we might be about to if we're not careful. Can I negotiate it through here? Now, we are not going too fast at all coming up here, because I know we're going to have fun and games trying to get it through this section. Come on, track toy. We're okay. We're good. We're through. We've made it. We're on to another lap. How long can it live with that wheel in an awkward angle? I mean, we're more than capable of getting above the 20-mile-an-hour crawler rule, so the car is good to go. Ooh, that's a nasty kind of bouncing around for that front. Oh, make sure it's not snapped off. This has got some seriously bloody strong drive shafts to have held the wheel in place across these jumps. Because something's going to land on that front wheel and surely it's going to go snap. But again, I would rather that. We'd still have one wheel to drive, or one wheel to steer, sorry, and we wouldn't have the wheel fighting against us. Oh, we just made it into this section. I need to be able to complete, now we've got big steering problems. I need to be able to complete these. Well, wheel. There we go. Now, ping back this. I don't normally go this way through here, but we have to with this. We've got to be able to get through these, otherwise it will be counted out for steering failure, as it's pretty close to it. It's still just about working, however. Can't believe it's still bloody going. This is a supercar, essentially, an Italian... Oh, there you go. Oh, okay, we lost drive in that wheel. That's actually very helpful for me, although the steering's not helpful. We lost drive, so it's not going to pull itself off the course as badly. Oddly, I'm very happy to see that. Yeah, this is a mid-engined Italian, what is it, 90s supercar? Maybe late 80s? And it is, in its basic framework form, still going. It's still going. We're up to 8 miles in, and it is still living. It is now trying to tear itself apart, but... still lives across into the sand. We'll have more than enough power, all-wheel drive power, to dig us out of here. The radiator's been immensely tough at the front of this car. The radiator has been immensely tough. That's potentially dangerous. Still, it goes away with it. The amount of cars that have landed awkward jumps like that and just wheels ping off. The off-roaders and so on. Admittedly, I'm struggling now to get much speed out of this because of the damage. So we are going a little slower, but... you would expect after all of this time something to snap in the steering. I guess if we lose the lower wishbone, sorry, the left-hand side, we are done for, because then we'll have 2 wheels flailing around with very little control over where they go. Does the tie rod actually still work? Yes, it does. So that wheel does have steering, but because it's not actually connected anywhere, it's very, very vague. Very, very vague indeed. It does kind of wander around a little bit. Amazed that is still all stuck together. This is where we've got trouble. Oh, that's big problems for us. That's massive problems for us. Surely you cannot survive that car. How are you still going? How did that not tear? I mean, you can actually see how much the car is wobbling around and unhappy when it's upside down. It's so unstable. How are you alive? There is no way you should have survived that one. That's one of the biggest crashes we've had. It isn't happy. I can tell you that much. This car is very far from happy, but it's still going. If this isn't the ultimate will to just keep on living around this circuit... oh no, I think that's that wheel buggered. Oh no, I just need it to flop the other way, and then we might be able to get going, but if it can't, we are stuck going in circles. I think that we've got very... it survived the bump. Oh, there we go, we've got it up. We have got it up. We are going to be good to keep going. Oh no. Nope, that's us done, I think, because the wheel is going to be... oh, it's actually snapped off a lot worse than it was. Come on. Come on. Are we good? We've got to be able to make it through the petrol station, and then we've got to be able to get up to 20 miles an hour, and I don't think we can make it through, because my front left's not actually touching the floor anymore. We know technically made it a little further. Oh! Hey! We bumped the bit. There's no rules about bumping a building to get the wheel back seated upright. There are technically no rules about that. Yeah, because we lost the tie rod now, so it's basically hung on by a bit of a drive shaft. We've made it through the petrol station, but we're not going to make it any further. That's the bolide. Dead. That is the bolide. We have bumped a building to get it upright, but we can't reverse out of there. The steering went... I don't know how it survived that pirouette, but it was the speed bumps that snapped the tie rod, and with that gone, the front wheel... was no longer going to stay upright, and once that was done for, it just flops around too much and gives us too much grief in the steering department. However, that is still a remarkable, remarkable drive. And finally, we have got a bus. Well, a stubby bus is going to take on our Endurodrome. Truth be told, the normal version of this currently sits last on our leaderboard with drive shaft and engine failure. Basically, it got to the first jump and everything gave up. This, well, theoretically, it is shorter, so we might be able to jump a little bit better across the rocks. It is potentially a bit lighter, which should help for, you know, similar engine be able to get the bus to jump a little further. That's the theory, at least. I am still quite concerned about the overhang at the back. It's a very big overhang we've got going on in this, and I fear we are still going to clonk the back of the bus on just about everything. If we do get to the point where we can survive a jump or two, should things like steering and chassis start getting bent and whatnot, I worry that the almost permanent wheelie this thing is doing might actually have the front wheels barely touching the ground, barely being able to steer, which would, you know, that's bad news. When you've not got your front wheels touching the ground and you can't steer, that would be bad news, but that is honestly a long way off. That is honestly quite a long way off if the bus is going to even be able to make it that far. Come on, make the corner, there we go. Just about nicely does it. Speed bump's unlikely to really do very much to this vehicle. And truth is, on the opening lap, well, none of that first section is going to kill a car. We've never seen it kill anything as of yet. It can do a bit of damage, sure, but a fresh vehicle, unless it's made of paper, is probably going to be okay surviving it. And this is where we are going to start seeing potential problems. You can actually break stuff bouncing into the mud pit. The bus is okay through there. The rock pit coming up here can snag bits of the underside of the car. It's normally if they've got wrecked suspension. It's normally if their suspension is completely destroyed that's when the rock pit does its worst. This is where the original bus died. All that bouncing is not going to help us. I think I want to go off this side because it's the biggest jump, best possibility of getting across the rocks. I still can't do it. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. It's just as soon as you touch. And that was actually a fairly good run. That was a good jump from the bus. It's not going to do it. Even the shortened version is not going to make it. It got very, very close. Got very close indeed, but we can see the engine is basically on the floor there. And, well, when it's on the floor, if the back hits something, that's it dead. Yeah, even the stubby bus, that doesn't quite survive all that well around this circuit. On to our leaderboard, and we have a new car into the top 3. Amazingly, the Lite track toy will go into a 3rd place. It is only beaten by the Dove and the Miramar. I think that's a very impressive feat for the car. Yeah, it's not exactly a normal vehicle, but the fact that the suspension and the wheels that were so exposed for so long held up as well as they did is mighty, mighty impressive. That car did not want to die whatsoever. We have to go a little bit further down to find the MX5, but that's still a pretty respectable showing for a little sports car that, let's face it, we were not exactly expecting to do massively well around this course. Going to 33rd place, it makes it onto a lap number 3, goes out with that drive shaft failure. I mean, it's right around similar point as the Lite. In fact, the Lite gave up just sort of slightly onto the dirt corner ahead of it with an overheating engine. So, yeah, the MX5 did respectably. And the bus, well, that didn't quite work as, as we might have hoped. It doesn't go last. The stubby bus does beat the regular bus on virtue of rolling a teensy bit further. It jumped a little bit further and was up the hill a tiny bit further. Still suffered, unfortunately, a very similar fate. Might have to put a much bigger engine in the bus at some point and see if that can then manage to survive. That, though, is going to be it for this video. As ever, I shall link all the mods used in the description, so you can download them and have a go with them yourself. But thank you very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.